Good morning, I'm Ms. Deline, and I'm bringing you daily oracle cards, and each one leads to a little lesson at the end. So today I'm drawing from the Sacred Rebels guidebook, and I got Going Beyond Normal. Isn't that just the coolest picture? I love it. I just love it. This artwork just blows my mind. On the path of life, there are deciding moments where we can choose to go with the mainstream, or we can dare to take a bolder, more authentic and trusting way, even if it seems riskier or less safe. To rely solely on logic and science without incorporating the mysterious and magical is a recipe for existence that is far too dry. The sacred rebel within our hearts will always choose a juicier approach to life. You are currently approaching such a choice point. You could say that the choice is about balance. It is less about choosing to honor either art or science, gardening or architecture, and more about integrating all approaches so that you enhance rather than hinder your life journey. There's a time and a place for logic, strategy, planning, and measurable outcomes. These are not bad tools to have, but we must be vigilant not to worship them or allow them to quash our less rational but equally valuable decision-making tools, intuition, feelings, and those things you know without knowing how you know them. The flowing inspirational energy of the heart may have no conceivable basis in logic or reason and still be uncannily accurate. To remain rebellious, we must not sacrifice the art of emotion, instinct, passion, and intuition for the science of logic and strict planning. This is a great card. I'm loving it. You're being asked to stay open to the intuitive approach in your life, your work, your creativity, as well as in your spiritual journey. The intuitive approach can be likened to the method of a gardener or an artist. There is a sense of what might work where, and a loose or even a detailed plan, but how the plan is carried out will depend on and respond to the flow of its surroundings. There is no need to control the situation, but rather a desire to nurture an idea to fruition. This oracle brings you a special piece of guidance. You are moving outside of the plan. You are living on the border of what is socially acceptable. This is good. This is fringe-dwelling freedom. Others might not see this about you straight away, as you seem pretty normal, but that secret eccentric streak is just waiting to show itself. And maybe you're an out and proud fringe dweller. Hello. I just have to say that. When I lived in the tiny town of Sutherland, I was considered one of the town's characters. So anyway, you might be an out and proud fringe dweller, completely comfortable with this way of being. Either way, this oracle brings you the message that you now have a chance to live from the heart more deeply and expressively than ever before. It wants you to realize that this is a legitimate, empowered, and creative way to live that honors all of who you are. You can give up forcing or squashing yourself down into a very limited set of so-called desirable qualities like intellect and control. You are not necessarily meant to abandon logic and intellect altogether. You are to use them to serve the desires of the heart, rather than to replace its naturally spontaneous and truthful nature with controlled planning and narrow strategy. It's time to get a bit wild and let nature take its course. So this is about listening to your heart and intuition and using logic and science when needed, right? It's that balance. So many people limit themselves to a certain way, or they squash themselves into that box. I know I was one of those people for many years that tried to be normal. And remember, this card is about going beyond normal. And so when you go beyond normal, And it's just about being yourself. I love this comic thing that I saw probably on Facebook or somewhere where the little girl says, "Mommy, what does normal mean?" And the mother says, "Honey, it's just a setting on the dryer." I love that because that's true, right? What's normal to me isn't normal to somebody else. As a writer, excuse me, I'll write things, and I'm in graduate school, and so I get feedback on the things that I write, and I'm just astounded that what's normal to me is not normal to other people. And other writers find out the same thing. It's like my experience is normal to me, but it's extra normal or outside of the normal to other people. So yes, there are qualities of my life that are perfectly normal. I eat every day and so forth. But yeah, it's about letting go of those limitations, those expectations that you have on yourself or that other people have for you, those expectations to be a certain way, to act a certain way. When you're working on a project, I'll bring up writing again, but art is the same way. I'll talk about the art first. When you talk to a sculptor, someone who carves something beautiful out of a stone, they will tell you that was, if they look at that stone, if I look at that stone, I'm not a sculptor, I'm just seeing this beautiful rock, right? I wouldn't even know where to start. They see something inside of that rock. It's not something visual, okay? They might see a bear cub, they might see a beautiful woman, they might see a flower inside of that stone. I don't see that, right? They're not seeing with their eyes, they're seeing with their heart. They're seeing with that intuition. They're sensing something else there. I just see a rock. Okay, so then writing as an example, sometimes we have the intent to write a story or to write about something. And as we're writing, the story becomes something else. I was in a class and I'm a nonfiction writer mostly, and I decided to dip my toe into fiction, and I was writing this fictional story, and it was very cool, and it ended up being a horror story. I don't know how that happened. I don't do horror, but that's what happened, and it was really an amazing story. And so, and just the very end was horror. It wasn't like, well, anyway, it just had a stunning ending. And so just trust yourself and allow yourself to go with the flow. Listen to that intuition. If you are in a relationship with somebody, or how about before you start being in a relationship with somebody, trust your instincts, trust your intuition. And they call it red flags. Well, a lot of times that's that intuition where you're like, something doesn't feel right here. But everything you see and hear sounds fine, and so you just ignore that feeling, and then looking back, you'll start you get into the relationship and things don't go well, and you look back and you see that you had these sensory alarms all along the way, and you ignored them because on the outside, this person acted perfectly kind and generous and loving. But then over time, very subtly, they changed. And it's not even like the dog knows a bad person from a good person. It's not like that. It's not like they're a bad person. Maybe they're just not the person for you, right? Maybe with someone else, those red flags aren't there because they will blend with that other person. But with you, it just wasn't the right fit. We get those messages all the time. And I don't care if you're a woman or a man, you get those messages. You feel a calling. You feel a sense of something that it's not making sense. Stop and listen to that. That's your intuition. That's your heart and your gut talking to you and trying to give you a message. We're not taught as children to listen to those things. Well, most of us weren't. Some of us have taught our children that. And so we're taught to block it. We hear voices, we're told we're imagining things, we have those feelings. I know when I was a kid, my parents, make a long story short, there was always something wrong. But sometimes there was something really wrong. And I'd say, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Well, I knew something was wrong inside, right? I could emotionally feel that there was something very wrong happening or about to happen. And if I would ask about it, I would be like, shut down. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't, and so many of us had that conditioning. And look at that. That came from somewhere else, okay? It might be from society, the way people dress. They think they have to dress in a certain way. I've always dressed comfortable. I don't care what the style is. So, yes, I'm an oddball, and I don't care, because I'm happy. And a lot of the people that are trying to be, dress perfectly and act perfectly and do all the things that are expected of them are not happy, okay? So as you follow your heart and follow your intuition and allow yourself to listen to that, you will be following your own personal bliss. Okay, that's it for today. Blessings to all of you, and namaste.